Ladies and gentlemen, it is your host, Andre Norman, and we are back. We're in the building. I mean, this is like, I don't want to say hollow land because that's Green Bay. I ain't going to steal that from them. No. Green Bay is hollow land. That's real talk. That's going back to the days. We ain't going to just reinvent history. You know what I'm saying? But we definitely on some new ground.
Yeah.
This is the first real dynasty, official. People have done some things in the past, but we're in the real dynasty space. We're here at Gillette Stadium, I'm saying, with a phenomenal standout. Growing up with the name Bentley, did that make you want one?
Yeah. I mean, especially growing up, young kids, that's all you know.
Ja'Whaun Bentley. They call
Bentley.
You that?
Yeah. Most of the people only call me Bentley. Growing up, they would call me Bentley, and then the next question is, you got a Bentley?
You got one? Did you ever get one?
Nah. Still on the bucket list, but one thing at a time. You know?
One thing at a time.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Maryland?
Yeah, PG County to be exact.
Not to be confused with Baltimore City.
Not to be confused with Baltimore, and that's no shade to Baltimore.
Nah, you from where you from?
Yeah, they would say the same thing. He ain't from Baltimore.
He from the county.
He from PG County.
I used to watch The Wire, and they used to always say the county.
Mm-hmm.
And then dudes would say the city. Oh, we going down to the county. That's y'all.
Shocking the most, I just seen The Wire not too long ago. So
you all right?
I know.
How you not watch The Wire?
Working through it. We working through it.
Dude, that's like one of the best TV shows ever made.
I know. I mean, everybody told me that growing up too, especially when the other young kids would watch it. They be like, "Hey man, you seen The Wire episode when so and so did this?" You just nod your head.
You can watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, you could.
You watch the clips.
The main clips. Yeah.
That's all I do is watch clips now. I watched the whole 5 seasons. I just watch clips.
I need to go back. It's some scenes I got to go back to too, because people still talk about it.
So from PG County, what was it like growing up in PG County?
Fun. I mean, especially being a young kid. That was the times when you was always outside. You always try to find something to do outside.
Did you make the hide and go seek era?
Hide and go seek, yeah. I mean, especially at church. I grew up in the church too. So right when church would let out, your grandparents stay there a little bit longer than the service kind of.
You gotta go out back.
You going outside and you playing. Most of the time it was hide and go seek, playing tag, all those kind of games, just to occupy the time. So yeah, PG County, real culture. I would say the culture was kind of. It was different all the time. I would say it always adapt. Even the lingo. Certain words that we used back then, we don't use anymore. It kind of just evolved over time.
Right.
Some of it was New York slang that kind of bled over to the
New York's in blending everything.
Yeah, so even the Timbs, like we started rocking the Timbs, but we switched it over to Nike boots. So that's kind of the DMV staple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we want DMV now. I remember before DMV.
Oh, what was it before?
It was just DC didn't claim y'all. DC didn't merge. See, that's a Baltimore thing, the DMV. DC dudes is just like we DC.
Put me on something. I didn't know that.
DC dudes never called it DMV. That came later. That just became like the branding.
It sounds good.
It sounds good.
Because it's not even the entire Virginia.
I was in the feds locked up in the 80s, and I was with a lot of DC dudes. I never heard them say DMV.
They probably didn't like it.
No.
The
like, DC dudes and the Maryland dudes would always be like, not at odds, but it was like too close.
It is different, especially when you from there. Like you know when you've entered DC. Yeah. And you know when you.
It's like your Jersey dudes and the Newark dudes and the New York dudes.
Yeah.
Too close.
Almost exactly like that.
Too close.
So you kind of you know where that.
You know where that line's at.
Yeah.
You're getting close.
Yeah.
So, after church.
After church, I mean, I would say I went to a private Christian school, Nanny Helen Burroughs Elementary School. Learned a lot there, but then quickly segued to Drew Freeman Middle School, which is where Kevin Durant went to school there, yeah. And then we was right next door to Suitland High School, where Navarro Bowman, linebacker for the 49ers, went to school. So we was literally a fence. So we'll be out of school at 4 o'clock. They'll be out of school at 3 o'clock most of the times. But if we had a little back and forth, they'll be waiting on us right when we got out of school. Exactly. So there was a lot going on there.
They literally say, meet me at the fence.
That
was a thing.
That's exactly what they said. So we were trying to, like, beat the bus there. So, I mean, sometimes you ran into the little high school bullies and everything like that. But I felt like back in the day that kind of built a little bit of character.
Oh, no.
That's what I told ourselves.
You coming in here like 6'2", 240, whatever it is, you was getting bullied back in the days?
I've always kind of been this big, though. Like, so 5'10", I was probably 5'10". So this size, shorter, 5'10", 240 in middle school.
And people was picking at you still?
Oh, yeah. They didn't care about that.
No mercy.
Yeah, they didn't care about that. Back then, people cared about your age. Back then, it was like, oh, you 14? all right, I got something for you. Or it's like, oh, you 12? Oh, you a big 12. Okay, I see you.
Mental manipulation.
Yeah, but I always had older cousins, too. That kind of, I would probably fight my cousins more than anything.
You always fight the people you know.
Right, because my mom used to tell me, well, you should know he ain't going to hurt you too bad, but you learn a little something. That's something.
That was mom.
That was mom. Yeah, so at least you ready for
what scripture did that come out of?
You know how it is. Sometimes, like I would say, mom pushed the envelope just to make sure you're ready and you're not surprised if that moment happens.
So your mom from down south. That's some down south teaching.
Oh, my family kind of originates in the Georgia area, and somehow they didn't really break that story down to me. We ended up in PG County, but a lot of things, like I would say, like she would just make sure I was well protected. Like I wasn't shocked if something was to happen. I was always prepared for anything. So whether it be dealing with a bully or something like that, like she wanted to make sure that her son ain't out in school getting pushed around. So, and I feel
better
like
let your cousins beat you up than some stranger.
Right. So, and even then we'll be arguing about 2K, fighting about Madden, something like that, like little stuff kids argue about.
Now you get to high school, things change a little bit.
Yeah, DeMatha High School, DeMatha Catholic High School. First of all, I got to DeMatha by playing Boys and Girls Club for the KLM Cougars, which is a PG County
You went to the
team.
Boys and Girls Club?
Yeah, I had to play.
Who paid for that? Because we couldn't get the Boys and Girls Club where I came from. It was $5.
Wait, we had to pay. I would say, granted, I ain't paid. I was young. It's probably like $50. You just paying you just paying for the equipment.
Oh no,
And you have the little fundraisers. We'll put selling cookies every now and then, or candy to come up with the funds.
We stand outside. We got to go to the boys club in the summertime because use the pool. It was like the city thing. They made them let us use the pool in the summertime.
Oh, see, I already had the spot kind of on lock.
It was a city pool. Then they built the boys club on top of it. And one of the deals was you got to let the city kids use the pool in the summertime.
Okay, all right. So it was kind of like, okay, all right, I get that. But this, I would say, our Boys and Girls Club, we only play football. We didn't even talk about no others, like pools and stuff like that. The Boys and Girls Club only came up when we would go to the field.
Can you swim?
And play football. Yeah, my mom used to put me in swim lessons as a kid.
Everything. She got you covered.
It was mainly because after school, like you wanted to keep me busy. I did gymnastics for a stint, swim lessons, took karate for like 2 weeks.
A whole 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Sound like my kid. I got golf clubs. I got taekwondo gi. I got fencing gear. I got dance equipment. I got musical equipment. I got all kinds of stuff in my basement.
Ready for anything. But the 2 weeks in karate, like take that with a grain of salt. I didn't learn that much.
Gotcha.
White belt. Yeah.
You come in at white belt.
Came in at white belt and
went out of white
I
belt.
stayed right there. Yeah, but DeMatha played for KLM. I honestly didn't want to play football in the beginning. I would say I started playing because my little brother, who's 5 years younger than me, he wanted to play flag football. At this time, I'm probably about, I would say 12. And then he started playing flag. I didn't know about it. I was staying at.
You had to go out with him.
Yeah, but I avoided that for a minute. I tried to find something to do. So he'll be going to flag football practice, and I'll be like, oh, I'm going to so-and-so's house. I'm about to go kick it, about to play the game a little bit.
Your mom was like, your mom
just
kicking?
to avoid it. So that lasted for probably about 2 weeks. And then one day he was going to practice, and my mom was like, Ja'Whaun, you coming? And I was like, I got to go. You really? She said, you really not going to go to none of your brother's practice? And I was like, when you say it like that, it sounds
bad.
Yeah, it sounds crazy. So I was like, all right, I'll go. My biggest fear was that I would go up to the field, and then the coaches would spot my size, and they'll be like, you got to be doing something. That was the thing back in the day. See, you got to be doing something. Who you play for? And then I'll go to the field, and then that particular day, I went to the field, and then my older cousin went with me. He was kind of you would never see me without him or him without me. We was always just together all the time. And he was one of the guys that was kind of good at anything that he wanted to do, whether it be soccer, weightlifting, basketball, boxing, anything he wanted to do.
He was just natural athlete.
Happened to be nice at it. Me wasn't trying to do that. I was at home eating Hot Pockets, playing 2K, Madden. That was a perfect day for me. So I went to my brother's practice. My cousin went with me. And then out of nowhere, he disappears while we watching the practice. And I'm like, man, please tell me he ain't walk over there to them coaches. So he walks over there with the unlimited team, which is like, so after you class out of the whole pound league, you got to play unlimited. So he goes over there and he comes back and he already know how I feel about it. So he's like, Ja'Whaun, so they said you ain't even got to play. They said you could just put the uniform on and stand in the back. And I was like, nah. I was like, this sounds crazy.
That was a weak
I'm
sell.
like, yo, this sounds crazy. So he let me put the uniform on.
But you went for it, though.
I went for it.
Because your cousin told you to.
Because my cousin, I'm doing whatever he do. So I went over there, put the uniform on, and I stood behind. They had big D-line coach. Shout out to Coach Fox. I stood behind him the entire practice. I'm talking like I would go like this to see the drill that they was doing, and then I'll go back behind them just to make sure they ain't put me in. Like, wanted no parts of football. And then eventually we kept going out there a few times. So then I would kind of ease from behind them a little bit every now and then. And then one day somebody got hurt, and I was the next on the depth chart.
What was your apprehension of playing football?
I think I had a fear of not being good at it. I had a fear of not being good at everything that I do. Like, I hate that competitiveness in me.
How great were you at 2K?
I was nice. You couldn't tell me that I wasn't nice at 2K, especially at that time. I was a real competitor. I was like I said, me and my cousin would fight if I was to lose the game in 2K. Like, that's how intense it would get. But I didn't think that was. I took that as, all right, me and my cousin always fighting.
Yeah,
so
your world was kind of small at the time.
Right. Didn't even have my expectation level on just what I thought being competitive was. It never went as farther than 2K. So now I'm actually in football equipment at a whole different level of competitiveness. So that was new for me.
So how was your first experience on the field?
First injury. So I wasn't out that long. Wasn't out that long.
You went out there and got injured right off the rip?
Had a game plan. Young kid that I thought I was wise. I was a good thinker. So as soon as they put me on the field, I was, all right, what's the quickest way I can get off this field? And I was like,
fake an injury.
Right, let's just see what happens. So the first play, I happened to be right in the path of the running back. Make the tackle. And I was like, yep, we're going to go ahead and call it right here. I felt some pressure on my hand, lay right there. You would have thought I was
snapped
like,
your leg off.
Man.
You had some hand? You hurt your hand?
Laying there motionless on the ground. And I could just look to the side, and I could see the coach running out there. And I was like, y'all hurry up, hurry up. He was
Get the stretcher.
He said, what happened? I was like, I think somebody stepped on my hand. He said, boy, get up. Get up off the ground. And I ran to the side, and then that year, you kind of talked up that whole year. They was like, yeah, we can't put him out there. He ain't ready. But then I would see my cousin play quarterback, and one of our friends play wide receiver, and I would just see after the game how much love they would get after the game.
Super attention.
Especially playing quarterback and receiver. You see the kind of love they was getting. I was like, damn, I kind of want to, I like that. I kind of want to experience what that's even like. But at that time, it felt like so far away. I was like, I have so much farther to go to even play a position that gets that kind of acknowledgement. So I just knew I had a whole lot of work to do. And it's like, all right, Ja'Whaun, if you're going to be doing this, at least be nice at it.
So I want to be the best kicked in.
Yeah, that probably not even then. It was more so like, what do you really want to do? Is this what you really want to do? And if not, what's going to take its place? Because at the same time, I wanted to spend time with my cousin or kind of keep doing the whole attached to the hip thing. But at the rate that I was at, he about to keep going, and I'm getting ready to stay exactly where I'm at, playing 2K, and I'm about to just get left behind. So I was like, Ja'Whaun, you need to figure something out. So I started watching. That's when I would say the on-demand thing used to kind of started, and you could record on the TV. So I started recording games, just like random games. Every Sunday, I record like 8 games, and I would just sit there. My parents used to talk about it all the time. I used to sit there, and I would sit in my dad's recliner chair. He used to hate when I sat in his chair, but I used to sit there and watch the game on a loop, over and over again. Sometimes
what were you studying?
Game. At that time, for Madden. At that time, it was for Madden, but it was the clothes that they wore, so the swag on the field.
Hold on. You watched hours of tape to see some clothes.
Yeah. So
why you have to loop it though?
So look, anytime you play Madden, they give you the generic style of clothes that they wore.
Let me stop. My son called me one time, said he needed $80 for some clothes. Yeah. I sent it to him. Then I said, where's the stuff you bought? Send me a picture. And he's like, What do you mean? I said, he said, no, I bought it for my people. I said,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? I'm buying clothes for your people. What people you got? You ain't got no brothers and sisters.
Where these people at?
He spent $80 on clothes for his video game people.
I know that blew your mind.
I was like, dude,
So you got nothing.
you spent $80 to buy a green shirt for a video game character because you didn't like the blue shirt he came in.
Right.
He's like, yeah, he had to be. I'm like, I played video games. ColecoVision, shout out to Atari, 2600. You got what you got.
Right.
And it came with 2 controllers for the record. But he was literally buying clothes for his video game characters. So I know what you're talking about. I lost it that day.
I know you did. Cause my dad I used to waste paper. I used to write it down. So I
Write it down and then spend his money.
I would sit in his recliner chair, get his paper, his printing paper, and I'll sit there in the chair and try to see what they wore. So if somebody wore a white wristband, I'll write it down, white wristband on a piece of paper. And then I'll go back later on that night, go to Madden, switches to white wristband. This is the first time I'm telling this too. So like,
so you watch football to get the swag to make your Madden people look better.
Yes.
Did they play better?
I mean, I wouldn't say I was that night. At that time, I was playing all pro. I wasn't even risking it and playing all Madden. But at this point, I'm watching it, looking at the swag, but I'm not knowing
that you're learning football.
That I'm learning football as I do it. And then as I watch, I remember watching. I wanted to change my position because I wanted to get nicer football. So I was like, I actually want to handle the ball. So I was like, all right, what it'll be like if you played running back? And I was like, all right, Ja'Whaun, at this point, I'm like 5'10", 230 around this time.
Yeah.
230. And I'm like, all right, Ja'Whaun, you got to keep it a little bit more realistic. How about fullback? So I was like, all right, I could play fullback. So I used to watch the Ravens and watch LaRon McClain. He was a fullback that used to play for the Ravens. And I was like, oh, I could do that. He played a little bit of running back, and he played some fullback. I was like, I want to be like that. So I used to watch a bunch of his film, and then turns out the Ravens used to play the Patriots so much.
Of course.
That I would be watching a lot of Patriots film back in the Brewski, Vrabel area. So now some of my teammates they'll be talking about certain players, and then they'll be like, yo, how do you know who Mike Wright is? How do you know who Pryor is, who played in D-line? Shout out number 91, rest in peace. Like guys like that, Junior Seau, and I'll be like, yo, you wouldn't believe how much time I just sit in front of the TV
and watch
just
them.
watching. And I would just be soaking up all this knowledge, and then that kind of like escalated.
Then you actually watched them on Madden too.
Watched them on Madden too.
You got the same names.
I went through every single roster and did that. So not even just
hold up. You might be the first one in the NFL that studied the whole game from Madden.
I can name you probably the starters on each NFL team in 07.
Was Michael Vick on the cover that year?
No,
not
in 07. I'm not even sure who was on the cover of the 07, but I can name you
every
starters. Like the line, all the way down to the offensive linemen of like the Philadelphia, back in the Trey Thomas Philadelphia Eagles days.
That's a skill.
Yeah.
That's a gift that you didn't even realize.
No.
That applied in transfer. So I know a lot of guys who are gifted. I met them in the penitentiary, and they took their gifts to the street. Why don't you ever take yours to the street? PG County is not front all the time.
Yeah, I would say my family did a good job of keeping me out of that. Like even when I got close to like the streets and all that kind of stuff, they were like, boy, get in the house. Like I wasn't even allowed to be in that. It's like, but you crazy, get in the house. Your mama gonna kill, get in the house. And then I was like, man, y'all don't let me do nothing. And then I'll go in the house. And then I would just sit in front of the TV, and I would spend hours. Like it was some days
I get that.
I spent
I
like
live
4
in front of TV.
hours. So it would be like, I was like, all right, if I can't go out there with y'all, I guess I'll be sitting here watching football.
So when you finished high school, I saw that you was going to college.
Yeah.
Michigan and Iowa.
Yeah. So actually Maryland and Iowa.
Maryland, Iowa.
So it started off with Maryland was actually my first offer. And
Staying
at that
home.
time, yeah, the stay home movement, that was a big thing in the DMV, especially at that point, because a lot of the guys were going to different schools that was kind of out of the state, and then at that time Maryland was kind of struggling, so they was like, we need to start a stay home movement so we keep all the players in house. And at that time I was kind of just venturing out, and I kind of wanted to see what it was like, because I spent my years at KLM, ended up being nice at running back. End up getting looks from the Matha, and I ended up getting recruited by them to go there. And then freshman year, wanted to play varsity, saw that I wasn't ready. So I was like, go ahead, we're going to chalk that up. and just play on the freshman team. And we had a monster freshman team. We had 105 players try out for our freshman football team at DeMatha, and they didn't believe in cutting anybody because it was like I don't even know if this is true, but it was like a rumor that would go around. They were like, yeah, back in the day they cut Brian Westbrook. Brian Westbrook went to DeMatha. They cut Brian Westbrook, and then he ended up being Brian Westbrook.
So they kept everybody.
So they made two teams, the red team and the blue team.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, so the two I played D tackle my freshman year of high school. Me and Orlando Brown, who was he just got signed to the Bengals. Shout out to Orlando. We were the two D tackles. So me and him would end up being D tackles. We went through that whole season, and then we kind of he transferred, and then I stayed at DeMatha, and then I would say my junior year became a captain there. Junior year we lost in the championship, but then my senior year was kind of like all right, if you're gonna do anything, the time is now. The clock is ticking. So, and that's when everybody was kind of looking at the offers. That's when you had to have your huddle. Your huddle account had to be on point, your highlight tape, and all that kind of stuff. If it wasn't looking too good for you. So
Maryland and Iowa reached out.
Maryland and Iowa reached out. Pretty much every Big Ten school reached out. I remember I remember Kirby Smart came to DeMatha my junior year, and I'm in the hallway. So I'm in DeMatha. You had to dress up. So we in polos and like slacks and khakis and dirty. We call them dirty bucks, the little buck shoes, like dress shoes. So he's like, "Let me see you run down," and we in the hallway. "Let me see you run down the back real quick." I was like, all right, ran down the back, full sweat, in the polo shirt. But something like that, he invited me to the camp. But I was like, I get to go to Alabama. And at this point, I was kind of watching Dont'a Hightower at the time. So, and then I started trying to model my game after his. And he became kind of the benchmark of what I was looking for. I was like, yeah, if I could somehow get to that kind of play, like just watching him manhandle guys on the field, I was like, I got to be something like that, or I got to take something from his game. So as that went on, I accumulated some offers. Maryland jumped in the picture as my first offers, and then they just started kind of rolling. I was having a good senior season, and then I was kind of waiting to see where I wanted to go, and I guess I waited too late. So I was ready.
You didn't sign any of them?
No. So I was ready to commit. I was like, all right, I think I'm ready to make this decision.
What was you going to pick?
I was going to pick Maryland.
You know what happened when you called him?
I was like, hey, Coach, how you doing? I'm like trying to keep the vibes high. I was like, Coach, how you doing? He was like, I'm all good. I was like, hey, I think I'm ready to commit. And he was like, oh man, I love it. But we already had somebody to commit in the slot that you was gonna be in. And then I was like, oh man, I was like, all right, that's cool. But in my head, I'm like, all right, you just made my decision easier.
I call Iowa.
Now I'm going to Iowa, so I already start picturing it. Call Iowa right after that.
Hey, Coach.
What's up, Coach? How you doing? Your day going good?
Yeah.
And he was like, what's up, man? How you doing? We was just about to reach out to you. And I was like, all right, cool. I was like, wait,
I'm ready to commit.
I'm ready to commit right now. He was like, oh man, that's nice, man. That's nice. But we just had somebody commit in the slot that you was in. You more than welcome to play DN, but the linebacker slot's gone. So we're kind of moved on. And I was like crushed. So from that point, I was crying in my room. And I don't even at that moment I wasn't even showing emotions and stuff like that, especially about no football at the time. But at that moment, stuff got real. I was like, all right, now that you went from having 10 to 12 offers to none.
You got 2 slams on you. You scared to call somebody else?
None. I hung up the phone. I ain't even picking up the phone no more. So I'm like, all right, I don't even know. We had probably 4 games left of the season. So I'm like, all right, Joe, I didn't tell anybody. Only my parents knew. So I'm kind of just operating as if I got those 2 offers, and I'm just waiting. We would go to lunch, and we always talked ball at lunch. And I would just get quiet, wouldn't say anything. Because I was the captain of the team. So it was like, dang, that looks crazy. The captain of the team ain't
no offers. No, you had offers. How is procrastination?
Had offers, procrastinated, gone. So then I'm just kind of sitting there. I mean, obviously, when I'm alone, deep in thought, like, what's next? How you gonna move forward? Out of nowhere, Elijah Brooks, who's the head coach at DeMatha at the time, he's now at Virginia Tech as the running back coach. he reached out and was like, "Hey man, Purdue just called. They looking to offer you." And I was like, "Man, I'm down bad." I was like,
Right now.
Where is Purdue?" I was like, "Is that in?"
It's in Indiana.
Like, he said it's in Indiana. I was like, "Man, I gotta go to Indiana." And I was like, "All right, I'm sure if they jumped in, somebody else gonna jump in for sure."
Now you playing again.
Right.
You went right back to playing again.
Exactly, just like that. But at that moment, I would say, even when I lost the offer from Maryland and Iowa, grew up in the church. So off rip, I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta pray. If I'm sitting in this room crying right now, oh yeah, it's something that's bigger than me right now. I gotta reach out to somebody. And me growing up, that's the only way I knew how to respond to certain situations.
Do you remember the prayer you said?
Not verbatim, but it's always along the lines of, God, I don't know what you got planned for me, but I know you ain't never left me down before. So whatever you got going, I'm with it.
Then he sends you Purdue and you procrastinate again.
Then he sent me Purdue, and I was like, God, you funny. I was like, man, you funny. You got jokes. I was like, but at this point, I was kind of just oblivious to what Purdue was, just because at that moment, you kind of just looking at all the big time spots. At this moment, we had 22 guys at the Mather committing D1. So we had a big committing class. So Purdue jumps in the picture. In my downtime, I would just do research and just look up Purdue. And off rip, you see Drew Brees, Rob Ninkovich, Matt Light, Aiken Adele. And I'm like, okay, they got some names. And I see I look at the field, and I just start picturing myself there. And then I'm big on, like, tradition and, like, the kind of smash mouth kind of Big Ten vibe with the grass on the field, grass/mud on the field. And I'm like, okay, I can make this work. So I was like, all right, I just got to.
Did Jeff George go there?
City? Who?
Jeff George, quarterback.
He probably did, but I'm not sure. I ain't with all
We
that.
have to go to history books.
I ain't all that well versed.
I used to be a bookie. So I used to know every football player, every high school, every college down the line back in the 80s. I could tell you where everybody went.
So you like me?
Yeah.
Okay. We more alike than different. Okay, I see.
So I just remember him going to Purdue. I could be wrong.
Yeah. So I was just like.
I know Big Dog Glenn Robinson went there.
What's crazy is that his son was my roommate in college.
Glenn the third?
Yep. Glenn. Shout out to Glenn. His brother, Glenn, he would come visit us all the time. At the time, he was playing in Michigan.
Yeah.
So it was always cool seeing him. But I took the visit. When I took the visit to Purdue, freezing. It's probably 10 degrees. Now, I never even left Maryland before this time. Obviously, you take little family vacations here and there, but you're there for a hot second and you're
going
back about your way. Yeah.
Then you remember.
Yeah, so we take a full trip to Indiana, me, my mom, and my godmother, freezing cold, and I'm like, I see the field, the picture, you know how they make the picture look sometimes. It's kind of like the Big Mac, how the Big Mac look shining and everything.
Until
you get there, and you're like, oh, man, we got, all right, when I'm done, though, it's going to look like something. Like, I kept picturing myself there. I was like, when you do this, this is the spot. I always felt it. So I committed on my visit, and that was huge for me. One, because I didn't have to think about it no more. I was like, all right, now I could focus. Now I could hone back in like I was at the Mather. I would lock in, and then I had my goal in sight, and I would just shoot for it. And now I got to finally commit and get that kind of the monkey off my back and just, like, focus, lock in. And, like, all right, now you're here.
But
so,
you did 3 years as a captain at Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
What did it teach you? Football stuff we know. 3 years as a captain at Purdue, what did you learn?
Well, they selected me as a captain when I was 18.
How did that feel?
At that moment, it was kind of intimidating just because I felt the build up to it. Now, I was always just being myself at all times. So me being myself is kind of like, all right, the team is kind of down. How can I?
You're an energy guy.
Yeah, big energy guy. And I'm just, I would say, authentic in that way. Like, if something needs to be said, I don't like an elephant in the room and nobody saying anything. It's like, yo, we need to say something. I'm going to be the one to say it. I don't even care. And then it turns out that people kind of took.
It made you captain. So how did it feel to be captain for 3 years?
I was like, y'all, some of the guys, fifth-year seniors. So dude's like 23. I'm like, you selected an 18-year-old as a captain? He's like, I don't know what you see in me. So then I would start asking around. I was like, yo, so what do you do as a captain? And they're like, bro, just be yourself. That's why we chose you, because you're yourself. Now do that and just take it up a notch if you can. So I took that and kind of ran with it. I would say it put me in rooms that I didn't necessarily think that I was ready for. And at that time, I was still fighting leadership, if that makes any sense.
Right. You wanted to be free, not responsible.
I wanted
leadership comes with accountability.
It do. I wanted to be the guy that all my other teammates was. They used to be able to come to practice,
roll
do
out,
their thing, leave. I was like, yo, why can't I would be a heck of a player if I could do that. If I could just show up, kill a workout or dominate the game and go home, not have to say anything to nobody. I was like, I feel like I could do that, but it wasn't my calling.
So on the back end of having to do that for 3 years, what was the best part of having to do it? Now that you're done, and what did you get out of it?
It made me stand in what I was saying. So a lot of the times I would speak, and people would kind of be like, where you get that from? Like, everything you say kind of be on point. So where you get that from? What you be watching Ray Lewis? Who you be watching? And I was like, bro, I just say what I feel like I need to hear. Sometimes I'll just get in the huddle. Like, even in high school, I would be doing the same thing in the middle of the huddle, saying stuff. At that time, I was me and my family was bouncing from home to home, and people didn't even know what my family was.
What do you mean
through.
bouncing from home to home?
We were homeless. So when I was while I was in high school, we lost our house. My dad sadly got laid off, and life just happens, and then we had to move out. So then we were bouncing around from.
Let me hold on.
Yeah.
So it's you, mom, dad. How many brothers?
Me, mom, dad, little brother.
And he loses his job, so you can't pay the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
Then they foreclose on the house.
Yes.
And they come up, put the thing on the door, tell y'all gotta go.
Yep. And at that point, I was kind of like, my mom wasn't one to hide stuff from us, so we would kind of see.
So where did you go? I mean, they pull up.
We were bouncing we would go to grandma's house one time, and then we'll go to my grandma's house on the other side of the family another time. We'll go to aunt's house here. We'll go somewhere else.
The whole time through high school, you bouncing around house to house.
Yeah. After my freshman year, that was pretty much the path.
So how do you feel not having a house? I mean, you go to school, everybody has stuff, they're going home. You really can't invite people over. You're the guy always going over. You know what I'm saying? So how does it feel not to have a house? Well, even though you stay with fam, but it's not your room.
I really didn't know how to feel. At that time, I didn't know how to feel, just because even when we had the house, we would have parties. We was always the house that people would come to just to, like, relax, and just after a long week of work, we would have family over just to kick it, things like that. And then when life happens, just like that, gone. So then you just like, all right, what's next? So then you staying at grandma's house one day, and then it would get awkward sometimes. Just as a young kid, you just trying to learn how to speak up. So you'll be laying on the couch, sleeping on the couch one day, and it was really, when you're having family events and somebody's like, so it's kind of funny, somebody be sleeping, sitting on basically your bed. So you sitting on the couch, you like, yeah, I can't wait till they go home so I can finally lay down. And then they finally leave, and you finally get to lay down wherever you gonna. So it was different, especially for a young kid. So I would bring that with me to the field, and then in the middle of huddles, they'd be like, "Yo, you just said a powerful message right there. Where did that come from?" And I'm like, "Bro, I just tell you how I'm feeling, and I tell you what I need to hear." So it will always be along the lines of, you never know when your last play is gonna be. You never know when life just happens. Now I'm saying it's the high school kids.
Yeah.
So they sitting there like,
what are you talking about?
Bro, whatever you said was powerful, but man, we don't know what you're talking about.
You coming too deep.
Yeah, but I was experiencing
it.
I was experiencing things that was well beyond my years. Like some things that, and so most of the times kids wasn't able to explain that or put it into words what was happening. I had the gift of being able to explain what I was going through in a way where everybody's able to
everybody got to
understand
stay together for the 4 years.
Everybody got to stay together.
So when you go away to college, are they still homeless?
They were staying at my aunt's house at the time. So yes. So I would be away at college, and obviously at that time you're getting like stipends and things, so you always shoot that back to moms and make sure everybody was good, and we would talk every now and then.
So you're sending your college stipends home?
Yeah. That was pretty much the thing, and that felt like normal for me anyway.
I mean, I get it. You're supposed to look out, but it's like you're probably the only kid sending home their stipend money to pay rent.
Maybe, yeah. So it was different. It was.
But you really can't even. Not saying you can't come home, but you really got no home to come home to from college. So you just stayed on campus a lot.
Yeah. So you'll go. A lot of times people will go home. I'll stay at school. Granted, at that point, I was like a gym rat, but I felt like I kind of had to be, because as long as my family was going through what we was going through, I was like, hey, you can't just be going home chilling. Like, I always felt like my mission was just different. I always felt like everybody's given a journey, and it's like, hey, man, you can't complain about the journey. Everybody got their own journey. You was just placed in that spot, and it's like, what you gonna do with it from here?
So when you got to school, it was football. You was going to NFL.
It was NFL, and I don't know what the plan is after this.
Yeah,
so
it was like
we all out.
You in your mind, you're like, every practice, every drill is I'm going to the league.
In my head, this is happening. So it's like, are you gonna be ready when you get there? That was my mindset.
What does 143 mean to you?
My pick, third day pick.
140. They called your name out.
Yeah, wasn't even expecting my name to be called before the draft started. I would say I didn't really know what to expect. Someone say I probably wasn't gonna get drafted, so I was like, all right, we just gonna see. I done seen God move before. Let's see what happens. Let's see what he does this time. He always keeps the story interesting, so who knows how long I'll be sitting here. So I invite no fam over for the first day. Second day, I'm in and out of the house. Probably went to see a movie or something like that, trying to kill time. Third day.
Who called you?
Nobody called. Nobody called at that moment. Third day.
I mean, when the
Patriots
call comes,
Patriots.
Who's physically on the phone?
Oh, Robert Kraft.
Oh, the boss called you.
Boss man. So that happens, and I would say even when I was taking the visits to teams, I came here, and like I said, the minute I came here, I thought back to me sitting in that recliner chair, watching all those games with like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady coming down to crunch time, game-winning touchdown. My mind just instantly, I'm like, yo, look where you at right now. This is
real.
This is what you've been thinking about. This is why you sat in that chair wasting all your dad's paper in his recliner chair. Now you're here. So everything I would just see it, and I was like, that's just like Madden. That feels just like Madden. I was like, it's crazy. So I came in for the visit, and then when I left, I was like, oh, if I don't come here, it's gonna be weird if I go anywhere else. But I was like, I'm gonna see how it plays out, because I've seen crazy things happen. So I'm like, all right, just go home and just see how it goes. So the draft is going, and then I look. My head's down for most of the draft, because I'm like watching all these guys get drafted ahead of me. Some of them I know, so I'm like, all right, cool. And some of them you kind of giving a side eye. You like, man, he ain't better than me. Like, this is how you
right.
talk. So I'm like, I watch and I pick my head up and I see New England on the board, and I'm like,
it's my time.
I said, hey, God, that's a fine spot. I was like, that's a fine spot. And I'm literally
saying, he was calling 143?
I'm saying this in my head. I'm like, hey, if I'm going to get drafted, it's going to have to be right now.
Then the
to
phone
this
rang.
team. And I looked down. My phone's on the ground. Phone's ringing. And I was like, yo, I called it. And then I pick up. We had a conversation, and I leave. And I'm like, yo, at that point, I'm like, oh, man, I got drafted. But immediately, I'm like, all right, now we back to work.
They
called
your name?
What's crazy is that somebody had got drafted ahead of me. So, in the third round, they kind of showing commercials.
So they called you in a commercial?
Man,
nah. They did that to you?
They talking about commercials, and all you see is my name go at the bottom, and probably
using the ticker.
20 minutes after I get drafted, then they pull up the TV screen. So I'm kind of like, all right, y'all lucky I'm excited right now, because I would be mad.
Hold on.
Mad.
You didn't see it come on like, yo, and with the 143rd pick,
because they
and
called
NFL draft,
Nah, I didn't get that. I was like,
you know something? It made you work harder.
It did, and at that point, it wasn't even obviously like the family. You kind of like you hugging everybody, you're crying.
But it's not. You wanted that.
It's probably a different feeling, but I don't know. I ain't even get to experience it, so I'm kind of like, all right, that's cool, but that ain't my journey. I'm like, all right, that ain't.
Everybody got a journey.
Yeah, that just ain't me. I guess that ain't me. So that happens, and right when it pops up on the screen, whole house is screaming. Mom's crying. And right when I get happy, then I'm like, all right, I'm back to work. Like now it's
next
not
level.
enough.
This is the last level.
It's not enough for me to just get drafted, because that's like a check mark off the thing. And that's kind of like, I guarantee a lot of guys feel that way, where you like, man,
I made it.
But it's like, it don't feel right. I feel like it's something else there.
They didn't have nights sleeping on auntie's couch. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have to, you know what I'm saying, really be down on the school lunch. Free lunch kid?
Free lunch kid.
So you made it. I've never, well, back then, I can imagine a billionaire calling me and saying, "What's up? You coming to the team?" That just has to be like, wow. You know he's a billionaire because that's just all team owners are billionaires. So you got a billionaire call your phone and be like, "Yo, man, welcome to the fam." That's life-changing. Then they pay you.
Yeah.
3rd round pick. Then you buy your folks a house. How was that?
Man, surreal feeling. Just because when you do monumental things like that, it just takes you back. Like oftentimes you're so deep in the journey, you don't really take the time to look back to see how far you come because you just focus on the next thing. You're like, all right, I did that. All right, what's next? All right, I did that. What's next? Then you do something that's real pivotal that really shakes your whole world or shakes your family's world. And then you're like, man,
I did that.
You really making some, hey young fella, you really making some moves out here. Like, don't forget.
How did it feel to buy your parents that house?
It was another opportunity to breathe. You got a chance to finally to see my mom just breathe and take a deep breath and just be like, all right, now we could focus on something else rather than, all right, how we about to work out this.
Stay.
Right, all that kind of stuff. But it was a real, I mean, I can only imagine how my mom felt, but for me, just seeing her face and just seeing her smile and just her and my dad and just see how far we've come, and because it would be different if like we ain't talk about this stuff, but throughout the whole process, like I said, I'm a faith man. So a lot of times, in our toughest of times, you wouldn't even have known what we was going through at the time, just because you see our family, we light up a room, we laughing, joking, all that kind of stuff. You would have never known, but it's like we never complained. We never felt like, oh, whoa, it's me. Oh, why we gotta go through this? It's like, nah, it's our journey. It's our journey. We just gonna see it through.
You about to take us to our close. Because if people watching this right now, some are in prison, there's a lot at home, and they're going through stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't know their journey. They don't know their testimony. And they're not sure that they belong as captain. They're not sure that they belong in the room. They're not sure of what's going to be tomorrow. If it's a place to stay or the wife's going to be as happy or whatever the scenario is. Everybody's going through something. And from somebody who sounds like they're a professional, you know what I'm saying, and with the hand of God on his back, and then been through and came through and still going. That's the best part. You ain't done going. What you going to say to them? I need you to give all the listeners, man, that hope and that journey, man, of how they can, like, press through. Because they think you got it easy. You're a multi-millionaire football player. You're done. It's over. It's checked. You've always had it this good, and it's always going to be this good. And I wish I had your hand in. So give them some encouragement. Let them know.
Man, the biggest decision that I ever made was standing in my gifts. A lot of times I used to run from everything.
No. See, no. We missed this. I need you to not talk about them. I need you to talk to them.
Oh, yeah, I'm getting there.
No,
I'm getting
okay,
there.
okay.
I'm getting there.
Okay, light the room up.
Let me build.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm getting
okay.
there. Yeah. So, stand in it. Stand in it. Stand in it. Stand in it. Don't run from it. Well, I said this before. You gonna get me hype. Stand in it. Don't run from it. Be where your feet are. Understand that everybody has a starting point, but where you finish at and how your journey looks, it's on you. It's on you. It's on you. Everybody's dropped in everybody's starting point is different. And wherever you make your way at from there, you got to navigate the ups and the downs. There's going to be trials. There's going to be tribulations. There's going to be moments where you think you ain't got it. There's going to be moments where you think you ain't up for it. There's going to be moments where you doubt yourself. It's going to be moments where you look to your left and your right, and the people, they doubting you as well. But at some point, you got to stand on everything that you believe in. You got to own up to whatever gifts that you have. Act on it. Act on it. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. Believe that you're worthy of everything that's coming your way. Understand that there's always somebody watching you. There's always somebody's looking for it. You're in the middle of your testimony. And for you to have a testimony, you got to go through a test. sometimes the test feels like it's unbearable, but me being a man of faith is God don't put too much on you than you could bear. So best believe that you could hold that weight for sure. You could hold the weight, just see it through. See it through, and man, I feel like I gotta say this.
Go.
All right. So a lot of times you find yourself in situations where you're running from your calling, and lately I would say that I've been, even like the past few years, been stepping in my calling, and it was a conscious decision. Like this was a decision that I literally sat in my car, and I was like, all right, Ja'Whaun, I used to fight leadership. I was like, man, I hate leading stuff. Like I told you, I wanted to be the one that is able to do what they got to do and leave. And I used to run from leadership. Anything I did, I ended up being a leader of it. I didn't know why. And I was like, I just want to be a person in the room. And it's like, nah. God would just tell me every time, nah, that ain't your journey. Your journey is you gonna lead because I got my hand on you. You don't want me to take my hand off. So it's like, hey, you going to stand in this. So I was like, all right, what would happen if I actually just went through with it? If I actually just stood in what my calling was. And ever since I did that, ever since I stood on whatever I believed in, the leadership, and I owned up to it, and I've been able to bless other people. I've been able to just be myself and kind of talk freely and just spread talk about my journey. Because a lot of times I would say I didn't want to talk about my journey until I felt like I was done, which a journey is never done. It's always going to be another piece to it. So it's like, man, how about in the process you help somebody out by sharing with them your story, and maybe you'll drag 10 people with you.
Yeah.
And then instead of it just being your story, somebody else coming to you and be like, man, when you said that, you really helped me out of a dark place, because I've been there, and I needed somebody to tell me their story and get me out of that spot. So, man, I would say that even being able to talk to you and having this moment is powerful. Anytime I get the opportunity to kind of share my story, it means a lot to me. Everybody kind of see me, I'm laughing, joking, because I done seen what it's like to not have the when it's not a lot of opportunities or a lot of things to smile and joke about. So it's like, man, if you're gonna be living this life, please live it with a happy face. Even if sometimes you don't see much to smile about, understand that somebody always got it worse. Please understand that somebody always got it worse. And that's what my family kind of we stood up on. And I would love to just one time just like, my family has been, my mom coming off of Mother's Day has been a rock for my family for sure. Just everything she had to endure along with my dad. So I would just like say that I always appreciate your parents and your upbringing, and everybody that you would call a mom or somebody just steered you in the right direction or just pulled you aside and be like, hey man, what you doing? Get over here. You supposed to be. You got this one goal. Let's stay. Get in the house. Stay on that. So whoever that is, just appreciate them, and be that person for someone else too.
I got one thing in closing. This is my poem. I didn't write it, but when I heard it, I said, that's my poem.
Talk to me.
And something tells me, you can have this too. You know what I'm saying? It came off TV, but you can have, we share this.
Yeah.
But if you claim this and say, yo, this is my official poem, then I believe it. I believe this is going to be your official poem after you hear it. And you heard it before.
This when you usually press record.
Hit record. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightening about you shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. It is not in some of us. It is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we consciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fears, our presence automatically liberates others. I sent it to you.
I'm taking that.
I sent it to you.
Yeah, you might as well copy and paste that one.
Ladies and yo, Coach Carter.
Yeah.
You see Coach Carter?
Yeah.
In the gym?
My granddad used to make me watch that all the time.
You see the dude in the gym?
Yeah.
That's the poem from in the gym.
Why don't I remember that?
When they locked him all out, he came back. They said, "Yo, they can't make us study. They can take the chains off. We got to study." Then the Spanish boy stood up. Yeah, that's what he dropped. I cried, and I've been loving that poem forever, but I never took the time to actually hold it and
really
put it down.
What it was saying.
And I meant it. I just never embraced it. I ran from it. Now I carry it with me. I'm going to send you a copy.
That's impactful.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it is your host. It is a youngin' from the from Prince George County.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Mr. Bentley, soon to own one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but it's not even the wheels.
Nah.
You know what I'm saying? It's the heart. Until the next time, live, you know what I'm saying, from Gillette Stadium, hold it down.